The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Hospital hummed overhead as Maria Gonzalez sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, her weathered hands clutched tightly around a crumpled tissue. The pediatric waiting room at 2 a.m. was a place where hope and desperation collided, where parents held their breath and prayed to whatever deity might be listening. Her 8-year-old daughter Sophia lay in the emergency room bed just beyond the double doors, her small body fighting an infection that had escalated from a simple cold to something far more serious. The fever had spiked to 104 degrees, and the doctors were running tests to determine if it was pneumonia or something worse. Mrs. Gonzalez, a young resident, approached with a clipboard, his scrubs wrinkled from what had clearly been a long shift. "We need to admit Sophia for at least 3 days. The infection is more serious than we initially thought, and she'll need 4 antibiotics and round-the-clock monitoring." Maria's heart sank even further. She had already spent the last of her savings on the emergency room visit, and her insurance, what little she had through her job cleaning offices, wouldn't cover the full cost of a hospital stay. She worked 2 jobs just to keep their small apartment and put food on the table, but medical bills were a luxury she couldn't afford. "Doctor," she said quietly, her accented English careful and precise, "how much will this cost? I need to know." The resident looked uncomfortable. "The financial office will discuss payment options with you in the morning. Right now, let's just focus on getting Sophia better." But Maria knew what payment options meant for someone like her. It meant payment plans that would stretch her already tight budget to the breaking point, meant choosing between medication for her daughter and groceries for the month. It meant the kind of debt that could follow a family for years. She had been in America for 12 years, having arrived from El Salvador with nothing but hope and determination. She had worked every job she could find, cleaning houses, washing dishes, babysitting, slowly building a life for herself and Sophia. They lived in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment in East LA, where Sophia slept on the pull-out couch and Maria took the bedroom floor most nights, saving every penny for her daughter's future. The American dream, Maria had learned, was more like an obstacle course where one medical emergency could erase years of careful saving and sacrifice. "Mama," Sophia's weak voice called from the room. Maria hurried back to her daughter's bedside, forcing a smile she didn't feel. Sophia's dark eyes, so much like her own, were glassy with fever, but she was awake and alert. "Como te sientes, mi amor?" Maria asked, brushing damp curls away from Sophia's forehead. "Tired," Sophia whispered, "and cold." The nurse, a kind African-American woman named Janet, who looked to be in her 50s, adjusted Sophia's blankets with practiced gentleness. "The medicine is starting to work, sweetheart. You should feel better soon." Maria had noticed Janet's extra attention throughout the night. The way she took a few extra moments to explain procedures, how she brought Maria a cup of coffee without being asked, the gentle way she spoke to Sophia in a mixture of English and the few Spanish words she knew. "You've been here all night," Janet observed softly to Maria. "Have you eaten anything?" Maria shook her head. Food seemed impossible when her daughter was sick, and besides, the hospital cafeteria was closed and the vending machines were overpriced. She had exactly $37 in her wallet, and she needed to make it last until her next paycheck on Friday. "There's a 24-hour diner across the street," Janet said. "Mel's Place. They have good soup, and it's reasonably priced. Sophia is stable now. You could grab something quick." "I can't leave her," Maria replied immediately. "I'll be right here," Janet assured her. "I'll call you if anything changes. You need to keep your strength up for her." Maria looked at her sleeping daughter, then at Janet's kind eyes. Finally, she nodded. Just for a few minutes. She gathered her worn purse and the light jacket that had seemed adequate when they'd rushed to the hospital, but now felt thin against the cold hospital air conditioning. At the nurse's station, she left her cell phone number and walked reluctantly toward the elevator. The streets outside the hospital at 2:30 a.m. were eerily quiet, lit by streetlights and the occasional passing car. Mel's Place was indeed across the street, its neon sign flickering, 24 hours, in red and blue letters. Through the large windows, she could see it was nearly empty except for a few night shift workers, and what looked like a man in an expensive suit sitting alone at a corner booth. The bell above the door chimed as Maria entered, and she was hit with the familiar smell of coffee and bacon grease. It reminded her of the diner where she had worked for 6 months when she first arrived in L.A., before she learned that cleaning offices paid better and had more predictable hours. "Sit anywhere you'd like, honey," called the waitress, a woman about Maria's age with bleached blonde hair and kind eyes lined with tiredness. Maria chose a booth near the window where she could see the hospital and accepted a menu from a waitress, whose name tag read Dolores. "Coffee?" Dolores asked, already reaching for the pot. "See, please." Maria nodded gratefully. As she scanned the menu, Maria calculated costs in her head. A bowl of soup was $4.99, which seemed reasonable. With tax and a small tip, she could manage it and still have money left for the parking meter and maybe a snack for Sophia when she woke up. "Just the vegetable soup, please," she told Dolores when she returned with the coffee. "You sure? The meatloaf is really good tonight." "Just soup is fine, thank you." As Maria waited for her order, she found herself glancing around the diner. The man in the expensive suit was still there, and she noticed he kept looking over at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. He appeared to be in his 50s, with graying hair and the kind of clothes that suggested success, a sharp contrast to her own faded jeans and the hospital bracelet around her wrist. When Dolores brought her soup, Maria ate slowly, trying to make it last while her mind raced with worry about Sophia and bills and how she would manage the next few days. She pulled out her phone to check for any calls from the hospital, relieved to see none. "Everything okay, honey?" Dolores asked, refilling her coffee cup. Maria looked up, surprised by the question. "My daughter, she's in the hospital. Infection." "Oh, sweetie, I'm sorry. Kids getting sick is the worst thing in the world." Dolores's voice carried the weight of personal experience. "She gonna be okay?" "The doctors say yes, but..." Maria's voice trailed off. She wasn't sure why she was confiding in this stranger, but there was something about Dolores's manner that invited honesty. "But you're worried about more than just her health," Dolores finished gently. Maria nodded, feeling tears threaten again. "I work hard, 2 jobs, but hospital bills." Dolores squeezed Maria's shoulder. "I know, honey. I've been there. When my boy was small, he broke his arm, and I thought the bills were going to kill me before the worry did." The simple acknowledgement that someone understood made Maria feel less alone. She finished her soup and asked for the check, already dreading the walk back to the hospital and the long night ahead. When Dolores brought the check, Maria opened her wallet and counted out exact change, leaving a $2 tip, more than she could really afford. But Dolores had been kind, and kindness deserved recognition. As she stood to leave, the man in the expensive suit approached her table. Up close, she could see he had gentle blue eyes and a slight southern accent when he spoke. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said politely. "I couldn't help but overhear that your daughter is in the hospital." Maria tensed, unsure of his intentions. In her experience, men who approached single women at late-night diners rarely had good motives. "I'm sorry to bother you," he continued, seeming to sense her wariness. "My name is Robert Hayes. I'm a businessman here from Atlanta, and I just wanted to say that I hope your little girl gets better soon." "Thank you," Maria replied carefully, gathering her purse. "I know this might seem strange," Robert continued, "but I'd like to help with her medical bills, if you'd let me." Maria stared at him, certain she had misheard. "I'm sorry. I'd like to pay for your daughter's hospital stay. All of it." The words hung in the air like something impossible. Maria's first instinct was suspicion. No one did things like this, not for strangers, not without wanting something in return. "I don't understand," she said slowly. Robert gestured to the booth, where he had been sitting. "Would you mind sitting back down for just a moment? I'd like to explain." Maria hesitated, every instinct telling her to leave. But something about Robert's manner, patient, respectful, with no hint of expectation or demand, made her pause. Against her better judgment, she slid back into the booth, her hands gripping her purse tightly. Robert took the seat across from her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. Dolores appeared with fresh coffee for both of them, and Maria noticed the way she studied the situation, ready to intervene if needed. "This must seem very strange," Robert began, his voice gentle. "A complete stranger wanting to pay your bills. If I were in your position, I'd be suspicious too." "Why?" Maria asked simply. Robert was quiet for a moment, staring into his coffee cup. When he looked up, his eyes held a sadness that seemed to go deep. 15 years ago, my wife and I had a little boy named Michael. He was 7 years old, full of energy, loved baseball and dinosaurs." Robert's voice caught slightly, and he paused to collect himself. "One day he came down with what we thought was just a bad cold, but it got worse, and we took him to the emergency room." Maria felt her heart clench, sensing where this story was headed. The doctor said it was pneumonia, but it was more serious than they initially thought. Michael needed intensive care, needed to be on a ventilator. Robert's hands wrapped around his coffee cup as if anchoring himself. "We had good insurance, money in the bank, all the advantages. But even with all of that, we spent weeks in the hospital, watching our little boy fight for his life." "Did he?" Maria couldn't finish the question. "He made it," Robert said with a small smile. "After 6 weeks, he came home. Today he's 22, studying engineering at Georgia Tech, and healthy as a horse. But those weeks in the hospital..." He shook his head. "I learned what it means to sit in those plastic chairs, drinking terrible coffee at 3 in the morning, wondering if your child is going to be okay." Maria found herself leaning forward, drawn into his story despite her caution. "During those weeks, I met a lot of other parents. Parents like you, who were dealing with the same fear about their children's health, but also had to worry about how they were going to pay for treatment. I watched mothers skip meals so they could afford parking. I saw fathers working from hospital waiting rooms because they couldn't afford to take time off." Robert's voice grew stronger, more determined, and I realized how lucky we were, how arbitrary it was that we could afford the best care while others couldn't. "So you decided to help people?" Maria asked. "Not right away," Robert admitted. "At first, I was just grateful that Michael was okay, and I tried to go back to my normal life. I run a construction company, nothing glamorous, but it's done well. We built a nice house, saved for retirement, lived the American dream." He paused, looking out the window toward the hospital. "But I couldn't forget those parents. I kept thinking about a woman I met, Carmen. Her name was... Her son had leukemia, and she was working 3 jobs just to keep up with the insurance copays. I watched her choose between buying herself dinner and putting quarters in the parking meter." Robert's jaw tightened. In the richest country in the world, no parent should have to make choices like that. "What happened to her?" Maria asked softly. "Her son recovered, thank God, but the medical bills bankrupted them. They lost their house, had to move in with relatives. That family paid a price that had nothing to do with medical care and everything to do with money." Robert reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, placing it on the table between them. Maria could see it was simple but elegant. "Hayes Construction, Atlanta, Georgia. Robert Hayes, President. 5 years ago, I started a foundation," he continued. "Nothing fancy, just a way to help families dealing with medical crises. We've paid hospital bills, helped with travel expenses for families who have to go out of state for treatment, covered hotel costs for parents who need to stay near their children. Small stuff, really, but it makes a difference." "Why me?" Maria asked, still struggling to believe this was real. "Because I was sitting in that booth, thinking about my own problems. A business deal that's not going well, some investments that are shaky, and I heard you talking to Dolores about your daughter. And suddenly my problems seemed pretty insignificant." Robert smiled. "Sometimes the universe puts people in your path to remind you what's really important." Maria studied his face, looking for any sign of deception or hidden motive. But she saw only sincerity and a deep kindness that seemed genuine. "I can't accept charity," she said finally. "I work hard, I pay my own way." "It's not charity," Robert replied firmly. "It's one parent helping another. And someday, when you're in a position to help someone else, you'll do the same thing. That's how it works. But you don't even know me. I could be lying about everything." Robert chuckled, I've been in business for 30 years. I'm a pretty good judge of character. Besides, I've seen you with that little girl. The way you worry about her. The way you're willing to sit in this diner at 3 a.m. to make sure you have strength to care for her. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. Maria felt tears starting again, overwhelmed by the kindness of this stranger. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just let me help. Robert pulled out his phone. I'll call the hospital's financial office first thing in the morning and arrange payment. You just focus on getting Sophia better. Sophia, Maria repeated, surprised. I didn't tell you her name. Dolores mentioned it when she brought my check, Robert explained. She said you seemed like a good mother who was dealing with a tough situation. She's quite a character, that one. Been working here for 20 years. Knows everybody's story. As if summoned by her name, Dolores appeared at their table. You two working things out? She asked with the directness of someone who had seen it all. Mr. Hayes wants to help with Sophia's hospital bills, Maria explained, still sounding uncertain. Dolores looked at Robert with shrewd eyes. And you're doing this out of the goodness of your heart. I'm doing it because I can, and because she needs help, Robert replied simply. Dolores nodded approvingly. Good answer. Maria, honey, sometimes you gotta let people help you. Doesn't make you weak, makes you smart. But what if, Maria started. No what ifs, Dolores interrupted. Your baby needs medicine. This man can pay for medicine. Everything else is just pride talking. And pride don't cure infections. Robert smiled at Dolores's blunt wisdom. She's right, you know. I'm not asking for anything in return. I'm not going to show up at your apartment or expect gratitude or try to control your life. I'm just going to pay some medical bills and then go back to Atlanta. That's it. Maria looked between these two strangers who were offering her kindness without conditions. In her experience, kindness usually came with strings attached, with expectations and obligations. But maybe, just maybe, there were still people in the world who helped simply because they could. Okay, she said quietly. Thank you. Thank you for letting me help, Robert replied. Sometimes being able to make a difference in someone's life is the greatest gift you can receive. He pulled out a pen and wrote on the back of his business card. This is my personal cell phone number. Call me if you need anything else. If Sophia needs follow-up care, if there are other expenses, anything at all. Maria took the card with shaking hands. I'll pay you back. Somehow, someday, I'll pay you back. Pay it forward instead, Robert suggested. When you're in a position to help someone else, do it. That's all the payment I need. Dolores refilled their coffee cups one more time. You know what this calls for. Pie. On the house. Can't have a moment like this without celebrating with pie. Despite everything, Maria found herself laughing. I should get back to Sophia. Of course, Robert stood as well. I'll walk you back to the hospital, if that's okay. I want to see this little girl who's got such a wonderful mother. As they left the diner, Maria felt something she hadn't experienced in years. The sense that she wasn't alone in facing life's challenges. A stranger had appeared in her darkest hour and offered light, not because he had to, but because he chose to. The hospital across the street no longer looked like a place of worry and debt. For the first time since Sophia had gotten sick, it looked like a place of healing. The walk back to the hospital took less than 5 minutes, but in that time, Maria found herself sharing more about her life than she had with anyone in years. There was something about Robert's easy manner and genuine interest that made conversation feel natural. Sophia wants to be a teacher, Maria told him as they crossed the street. She's always playing school with her dolls, making them do homework and read books. She says she wants to help kids learn like her teachers help her. That's wonderful, Robert replied. The world needs more good teachers. She must be a bright little girl. Very bright. Sometimes I think she's smarter than me already. Maria smiled, the first genuine smile she'd felt in days. She helps me with English sometimes, corrects my pronunciation. She says we both need to practice, so we can be perfect Americans. You're already perfect Americans, Robert said firmly. Being American isn't about where you were born or how you sound when you speak. It's about working hard, caring for your family, and contributing to your community. You've got that covered. They entered the hospital lobby, and Maria felt the familiar weight of worry settle back on her shoulders. But now it was mixed with something else, hope, and the incredible relief of knowing that the financial burden had been lifted. Room 314, she told Robert as they stepped into the elevator. The pediatric ward was quiet at this hour, with only the soft sounds of machines and the occasional murmur of voices from the nurse's station. Janet looked up as they approached, her face brightening when she saw Maria. "Perfect timing," she said. "Sophia just woke up asking for you. Her fever's down to 101. The antibiotics are working." Maria's knees nearly buckled with relief. "Can I see her?" "Of course. And is this Sophia's father?" Janet asked, looking at Robert with professional curiosity. "No, this is Mr. Hayes," Maria explained quickly. "He's a friend who's helping us." Janet nodded without judgment. In pediatric nursing, she had learned that families came in all configurations, and help came from unexpected places. Sophia was indeed awake when they entered her room, looking small and pale against the white hospital sheets, but alert and interested in her surroundings. Her eyes widened when she saw the stranger behind her mother. "Hola, mi amor," Maria said, rushing to Sophia's bedside and taking her small hand. "Mama, I feel better," Sophia said in English, then switched to Spanish. "Quien es él?" "This is Mr. Robert," Maria explained in English, wanting Sophia to practice. "He's a very kind man who wants to meet you." Robert approached the bed slowly, understanding that children could be wary of strangers, especially in unfamiliar environments. "Hello, Sophia," he said gently. "Your mama tells me you want to be a teacher when you grow up." Sophia nodded shyly, but her curiosity overcame her caution. "Do you have kids?" "I have a son named Michael. He's all grown up now. But when he was your age, he had to stay in the hospital too. He got better, just like you're going to get better." "Was he scared?" Sophia asked. "A little bit," Robert admitted. "But his mama stayed with him, just like your mama is staying with you. And you know what? Having someone who loves you nearby makes everything less scary." Sophia smiled at that, and Maria felt her heart swell with gratitude for this man who knew exactly what to say to comfort a frightened child. "Mr. Robert," Sophia said seriously, "do you want to see my book? Mama brought it from home." She reached for a worn copy of Charlotte's Web on the bedside table. The book was clearly well loved, with pages soft from repeated readings and careful repairs made with tape. "This is one of my favorite books," Robert said, genuinely delighted. "Have you read it before?" "3 times, Sophia said proudly. "I like Charlotte because she's smart, and she helps Wilbur even though he's different from her." Robert glanced at Maria, struck by the wisdom in that simple statement. "That's a very good lesson, isn't it? That we should help each other, even when we're different." "Mama says helping people is the most important thing you can do," Sophia continued. "She helps lots of people at her work, cleaning their offices so they can do important jobs." Maria blushed at this description, but Robert nodded seriously. "Your mama is absolutely right. Every job that helps other people is important, and cleaning offices is very important work. Imagine if doctors and lawyers and teachers had to clean their own offices instead of helping people." Sophia giggled at this image, and the sound was like music to Maria's ears. Her daughter was going to be okay. Dr. Patterson, the attending physician, chose that moment to enter for his late-night rounds. He was an older man, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of doctor who had gone into pediatrics because he genuinely loved children. "Well, hello there, Sophia," he said warmly. "You look much better than you did earlier." "I feel better too," Sophia replied. "My fever went away." "That's wonderful news. The antibiotics are working just like we hoped they would." Dr. Patterson checked her chart and listened to her chest with his stethoscope. "I think we can probably send you home day after tomorrow, as long as you keep improving like this." "Really?" Maria asked, hardly daring to believe it. "Really. The infection is responding well to treatment, and Sophia is a strong little girl. We'll keep her one more full day to make sure everything is stable. Then she can finish the antibiotic course at home." After the doctor left, Robert spent a few more minutes chatting with Sophia about her favorite books and her school. Maria watched in amazement as her usually shy daughter opened up to the stranger, asking him about his son and his work and whether he liked living in Atlanta. "I should let you both get some rest," Robert finally said. "Sophia, you need sleep to get strong, and your mama needs sleep so she can take care of you." "Will you come back tomorrow?" Sophia asked. Robert looked at Maria questioningly. "If your mama says it's okay, I'd love to visit again before I have to go back to Atlanta." "Please come back," Sophia said earnestly. "I want to finish telling you about Charlotte's Web." "I wouldn't miss it," Robert promised. Out in the hallway, Robert pulled out his phone. "I'm going to call the hospital's financial office right now and arrange payment. Is there a number where they can reach you to confirm details?" Maria gave him her cell phone number, still feeling like she was in a dream. "Mr. Robert, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me. Just focus on taking care of Sophia and yourself." He paused. "I'm staying at the Marriott downtown for 2 more days. If you need anything at all, you call me, okay?" As Robert walked toward the elevator, Maria found herself crying again. But these were different tears, tears of relief and gratitude and overwhelming hope. A stranger had appeared in her darkest hour and changed everything, not because he had to, but because he chose to. Janet appeared beside her, having watched the interaction from the nurse's station. "Good man," she observed simply. "The best," Maria agreed. "I can't believe this is really happening." "Honey, I've been working in hospitals for 25 years, Janet said. "I've seen a lot of tragedy, but I've also seen miracles. Sometimes miracles look like successful surgery, and sometimes they look like strangers who pay hospital bills. The important thing is to accept them with grace." "How do I ever repay something like this?" Janet smiled. "Same way you repay any gift. You use it well, and when your time comes, you pass it on to someone else who needs it." As Maria settled into the chair beside Sophia's bed to spend another night in the hospital, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. The profound peace that comes from knowing you're not alone in the world. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, her daughter was safe, the bills were paid, and kindness had proven that it still existed in the world. Sophia was already drifting back to sleep, her small hand still holding Maria's. In the soft light of the hospital room, surrounded by the gentle sounds of healing, Maria whispered a prayer of gratitude to whatever force had brought Robert Hayes into their lives. Sometimes, she thought, angels appeared in the most unexpected forms, like successful businessmen eating alone in all-night diners, waiting for their moment to make a difference in the world. Maria woke to sunlight streaming through the hospital room window and the sound of Sophia giggling at something on the small television mounted on the wall. For a moment, she was disoriented. After months of waking up worried, the feeling of peace was unfamiliar. "Mama, look." Sophia pointed excitedly at the cartoon playing on the screen. "The mouse is trying to help the cat, even though cats usually chase mice." Maria smiled, struck by how her daughter's mind always found lessons in everything she watched. "That's nice, mi amor. How are you feeling this morning?" "Much better. My throat doesn't hurt anymore, and I'm hungry." The word hungry was music to Maria's ears. Sophia hadn't eaten properly in 3 days, and appetite was a sure sign of recovery. "The nurse said they'll bring breakfast soon," Maria said, glancing at the clock. It was almost 8 a.m. She had actually slept for several hours, something that had seemed impossible just yesterday. Janet appeared in the doorway with a breakfast tray and a warm smile. "Good morning, ladies. Someone's looking much better today." "I feel much better," Sophia announced, "and I'm hungry enough to eat a whole horse." "Well, we don't have any horses on the menu," Janet laughed. "But we do have pancakes, scrambled eggs, and orange juice. Think that will do." As Sophia ate her breakfast with enthusiasm, Maria felt her phone buzz. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, and her first instinct was not to answer. But something made her pick up. "Mrs. Gonzalez? This is Patricia Morrison from the hospital's financial services department. I have some very good news for you." Maria's heart skipped. "Yes, we received a call early this morning from Mr. Robert Hayes regarding your daughter's medical expenses. He's arranged to pay the full amount of Sophia's hospital stay, including all physician fees and any follow-up care she might need. Even though Maria had heard Robert promise this last night, hearing it confirmed officially made it feel real for the first time. The paperwork is all being processed, Patricia continued. You don't need to worry about any bills or payment arrangements. Everything has been taken care of. Thank you, Maria managed to say. Thank you so much. After she hung up, Sophia looked at her curiously. What was that about, Mama? How do you explain to an 8-year-old that a stranger has just saved your family from financial ruin? How do you describe the kind of kindness that expects nothing in return? Remember Mr. Robert, who visited last night? Maria began carefully. The nice man with the son named Michael? Yes. Well, he decided to help us with the hospital bills, so we don't have to worry about paying for your medicine and care. Sophia considered this seriously. Like Charlotte helped Wilbur? Exactly like that, Maria said, amazed at her daughter's ability to understand complex concepts through the stories she loved. That's very nice of him, Sophia said matter-of-factly. When I'm a teacher, I'm going to help people too. The simplicity of childhood wisdom struck Maria deeply. To Sophia, Robert's gesture was simply what people did for each other. Help when help was needed. It was adults who complicated kindness with suspicion and pride. Around noon, Dr. Patterson made his rounds again, and his examination confirmed what they all hoped. Sophia was responding beautifully to treatment. Her fever has been normal for 12 hours, her appetite is back, and her energy levels are returning, he reported. I think we can discharge her tomorrow morning instead of waiting another full day. Really? Maria asked, hardly daring to believe more good news. Really? She'll need to finish the antibiotic course at home, and I want to see her in my office in a week for a follow-up, but she's clearly on the mend. After the doctor left, Sophia napped, and Maria found herself with time to think about everything that had happened. 24 hours ago, she had been facing her worst nightmare, a sick child and bills she couldn't pay. Now Sophia was recovering. The financial burden had been lifted, and they would be going home soon. Her phone rang again, and this time she recognized Robert's number. Good afternoon, Mrs. Gonzalez. How is Sophia feeling today? Much better, thank you. The doctor says we can go home tomorrow. That's wonderful news. I was hoping I could stop by this afternoon, if that's okay. I promised Sophia I'd hear the rest of her story about Charlotte's Web. Of course, she's been asking about you. And I wanted to give you something before I head back to Atlanta tomorrow. Maria wondered what that could mean, but before she could ask, Sophia was waking up from her nap and asking for her mother's attention. Robert arrived that afternoon carrying a large bag and wearing the same kind smile that had first put Sophia at ease. He had changed from his business suit into casual clothes, jeans and a polo shirt that made him seem more approachable, more like someone's favorite uncle than a successful businessman. Mr. Robert, Sophia exclaimed as he entered the room. You came back. I promised I would, didn't I? How are you feeling, sweetheart? So much better. Mama says we can go home tomorrow. That's the best news I've heard all day. Robert set his bag down beside the bed. I brought you a few things, if it's okay with your mama. He looked at Maria questioningly, and she nodded, curious about what he had brought. From the bag, Robert pulled out several new books, beautiful hardcover editions of classic children's stories. I noticed you loved Charlotte's Web, so I thought you might enjoy some other books about friendship and kindness. Sophia's eyes widened as she saw the titles. Bridge to Terabithia, The Secret Garden, A Wrinkle in Time, and several others. These are for me, she asked in wonder. All yours. I asked the lady at the bookstore to recommend books for a smart 8-year-old who loves to read. But the books weren't all. Robert also pulled out a new backpack, sturdy and colorful, with pockets for books and supplies, and a pencil case filled with art supplies. For school, he explained. I know you're going to be a wonderful teacher someday, and every future teacher needs good supplies for learning. Sophia was speechless, running her hands over the smooth covers of the books and examining each colored pencil with delight. Maria felt tears threatening again at this thoughtful generosity. "There's one more thing," Robert said, reaching into the bag again. This time he pulled out an envelope, which he handed to Maria. "This is for you." Maria opened the envelope with trembling hands and found a check for $5,000. She stared at it, unable to process what she was seeing. "Mr. Hayes, I can't." "It's not charity," Robert said firmly, using the same tone he had used in the diner. "It's an investment in Sophia's education, in your peace of mind, in your family's future." "But this is too much," Maria protested. "It's not too much if it means Sophia can have school supplies and clothes that fit, if it means you can take a day off when you need to without worrying about losing pay, if it means you have a small cushion for emergencies." Robert's voice was gentle but determined. "I've been blessed with success in business. What good is that blessing if I don't use it to help people who deserve better than what life has handed them?" Sophia looked up from her new books, sensing the weight of the conversation, even if she didn't understand all the details. "Mama, is Mr. Robert our angel?" she asked innocently. Robert laughed, clearly delighted by the question. "I'm definitely not an angel, Sophia. I'm just a man who wants to help a wonderful little girl and her amazing mama." "But you're helping us like,"